Are you joining the meeting? Okay.
Golf resort is fun.
Thought you could talk about that.
Hmm.
We'll call this meeting to order and immediately go into recess, awaiting the arrival of the chairman.
Okay.
I'm just waiting so I can. No, man, I sent you an email. Mhm. Yes. So it's, I sent it to you. It should be a special meeting. It's a special meeting. Uh-huh. That was the vote. Yes. It's usually open up the meeting up to someone else.
Okay, fine.
Open up this conversation. Okay, I need to get off because it's gonna be echo.
Yep, I'm gonna get off too. Right?
Well, yeah, your phone, can you hear?
Okay, I can.
Okay,
Look it up.
okay.
See me?
I mean, it's okay. Did this fine.
Go ahead and tell them. Guess you won't be seeing me.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. I don't want me to be seen. I'm not seen. Can you see my hand raised?
I can, yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that things are working.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. Oh, I have to share.
Only time you need to share it, you have something for us to see that you wanted to present. So right now, you can see me there, right?
Yes, that's the most important.
Yes, so when, Bob's here, I'll just add what you said, you can see.
Okay. What happened?
No, I was messing with the view and I was like, what is that? And I I'm sitting in the chair. That was crazy.
That's the thing, I will documents on my phone. So we talked back and forth. Okay, well, let's say hello.
Oh, they can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, be careful, we hear you.
Miss Holly said, hey, Tony.
Honey, are you sick?
I did. I had that ugly disease that started with a C. And it's hanging over, so I got a coughing spell. I didn't want to be right there in front of everybody and that sort of thing. So I'm just taking precautions.
She's not a whole lot better than when she called me the last time. I was like, hello? Who am I talking to?
It was not good.
Well, we're glad you're better.
Thank you. It just amazes me. All this stuff that's going around now, you gotta get a shot for everything. They might. We have an audience this time.
Miss Carol Wilkin is with us.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to see that one. At 2:55, I was trying to get on and everything, and I was still there, like, man, took care of stuff. I was like,
I'll see you then.
okay.
Afternoon, I'm so sorry. Everybody up. Connection with Tony?
Yeah, she's there, she's ready.
Great.
Hi,
Hello, how are you, Tony?
Bob.
Glad to hear that.
Oh, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'm calling into the recess and open back up the regular business meeting. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. Let us begin by standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's proceed to the roll call, and as you state your name, please also indicate whether you have any conflict of interest regarding the matters before us this afternoon.
Holly Powell, no conflict.
Martin Carpenter, no conflict.
Bob Howell, no conflict.
Susan T.
And Nick Kelly, no conflict.
Susan T. Adams, no conflict.
Thank you, everybody. We'll begin with the next item on the agenda, the numbered memo 2020-25 regarding absentee board meetings.
And guess what? I'm gonna have Carrie Skeleton come and present that because she's the bulk of the person that does that job.
So, thank you very much. Thank you, Carrie.
See another year's voice. Yeah, I'm recording.
Okay, so I've given you each a copy of what I'm gonna go over for your reference. This is typically how a board meeting will take place. So we'll start off the meeting, actually the whole process will start by Anne Marie turning on the machine. She will print the first zero tape. All the board members will sign the first zero tape. After the first zero tape is signed, the number will be recorded, which should be 0 at the start. It'll also be recorded at the end of each meeting to reflect the total number of voters on the poll book for that meeting. And then before each meeting, we will open the machine, all the doors. You will inspect the machine to make sure there are no ballots inside to start the meeting. Each board member will be given a copy of the poll book. That is a list of all approved ballots for that meeting. So I'll give you the poll book. Before we move on to actually verifying the poll book, I will present any ballots that need review or I chose to disapprove, and then, I'll present all that information to you guys to verify. If you guys make a decision or make a different decision than I will update the poll book so that we can have an accurate poll book for the meeting. Once that is done, one member will read off the CIV numbers. That is a number that is associated with the voter's absentee ballot. Now, I will note the CIV number is confidential. However, I have received approval from the state. We can read the CIV numbers so long as we're not associating it with a voter's name. So as long as we just read the numbers, that's okay. As long as we're not going CIV2 is John Doe, that's okay. We will also randomly select 10 ballots for each meeting, staff will, to spot check. And all I do is I go down the poll book and highlight random ones. I don't even look at the envelopes other than when I checked it in beforehand. And the reason staff pick those to spot check is for situations like this. If someone's out, we have to be able to get those materials to them to view, and they have to be able to view the same materials as the board that's present. So that's why we randomly pick those so that we can prepare those ahead of time for anyone that may not be present at the meeting. Once all approved ballots have been read off, because those are the only ones that will be read off are approved ballots, staff and board members will begin opening so that we can scan them in. Now that is not tabulating them, but we scan them into the machine. And copies of the photo ID documentation, whether it's the exception form or a photocopy, needs to be retained with that envelope. So if for whatever reason you do take it out to inspect it, make sure you're putting it back in that voter's envelope. We do have to keep it with that. Once the ballots have been run through the machine, staff will take them out of the machine, and you'll see us kind of sorting them. We have to sort them by precinct so that when we have to do our precinct sort, they're already sorted out for us. We don't have to waste our time then doing that. We will then put the ballots in the appropriate bags to seal them. We will get the board's signature on a seal to stick on that bag for that meeting, and then they will be stored in the vault. The envelopes will be stored by that meeting's date in the vault as well. Some other information that I would like you to be aware of, the administrative duties have been delegated to the staff. So like I said, that is when the ballots get mailed into us, I will inspect them and make sure that everything is properly filled out, that the voter signed. And I will note on that, we are not allowed to look at the signature other than making sure it is the name of the voter. We're not comparing it to the voter's record or anything like that. We're making sure the witness and notary information is complete. The assistance section is completed if applicable, and that the photo ID documentation is included, which I said is either a photocopy or the ID exception form. We will sort the ballot envelopes for the board for review, such as like the approved ballots, disapproved, or needs review. So those will be kind of the 3 categories. We will verify the approved ballots against the poll book before each meeting just to make sure they're all there in order, that we're giving you the correct information. And any ballot duplication that needs to be done, we will have a bipartisan team in here that will help do that, a Democrat and a Republican. And usually I help with that and I'm unaffiliated. So we have the two parties and then myself. We have a log we fill out for the duplication and everything. And then once those are duplicated during the meeting, the board has the opportunity to compare it to their ballot so that, you know, that's kind of checking behind us that there's no mistakes and we duplicated it correctly. If staff have reason to believe that the ID exception form is false, we will document everything, we will present all that information to the board, and you will make that determination whether you think it's false or not. I will say, it has to be unanimous to find it false. If one person thinks it's not false, then we have to approve it. Staff are required to notify the voters upon receiving that ballot of any deficiency within 1 business day. So even though I may present to you at the meeting that a ballot is not approved, they may still be in the process of correcting it. So just because it's disapproved at that meeting doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to send another ballot in or they're going to correct that for us. If there is a deficiency with the photo ID documentation, we will notify the voter obviously within 1 day, but those ballots will actually be held until our supplemental meeting. That is to give the voter time until the 5 p.m. deadline the day before canvass to get either their photocopy or the exception form into us. So we give them the maximum amount of time to get that into us. And one other thing I don't have on there, but I would like to mention, when we are looking at ballots or envelopes, especially the duplicated ones, because we tend to look at those a little bit longer, we need to make sure they're laying flat on the table so that anybody in attendance, as well as the video feed, do not pick up any votes or confidential information. And I believe Ms. Dixon did send you guys the numbered memo already on the absentee board meetings. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
How do you verify photo ID is actually the registered voter? I mean, there may be a name on there, but, you know, let's face it, kids get IDs to go places all the time. How do we know that that is in fact the voter on that ID?
I have to take what they say at face value, that they have signed that envelope. And that's part of it. They have signed that envelope, and that is affirming that everything is true and correct. They filled out everything. We have to take it as what they say.
But we cannot then look at that signature and verify with the signature on
Correct.
the voter ID. So there's really no verification of the photo ID. Other than whatever the name that's printed on there, if it matches the voter registration, we're assuming that that is in fact the person.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to match exactly. The name doesn't have to match exactly. In other words, like a middle name.
Oh, yes, the
initial,
middle name, yes.
You know. I do have a question about when there would be a duplication. Is it because you think a ballot might not feed into the tabulator?
Now, if it's because a ballot won't feed into the tabulator, we won't do that duplication until we've tried to run it through the machine. That'll be done at the meeting. Ballots that are typically duplicated before the meeting are military and overseas, because I will say 90% of the time they are submitting it via email or the portal, so we have to put it on a regular ballot. Those are typically the ones you'll see as duplicated ballots.
Thank you.
And you're doing it now in the past. For a while, we had a Republican and a Democrat that would.
Yes, that's what we
You
do.
the
And
staff
I'm
doesn't have,
unaffiliated,
yeah.
so typically I help, I'll be that third
Yeah.
person, because it does require 3 people.
I've got one. You explained that if there's a question about the photo documentation, then the voter has until the county canvass to hear that. For other kinds of deficiencies in the previous bullet, is that the same deadline for other problems that they might be able to correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
That deadline is the same if their ballot is curable.
Right.
So if it is curable with just that cure form, yes, we can wait until that deadline. If their ballot, if something was wrong with it to the point we had to reissue that ballot has to be in by the same deadline as every other mail-in ballot.
Thank you.
Can I
Ms.
ask
Antoinette,
for
did you have any
clarification
question?
about that?
Oh,
Well,
hold
she
on.
said if the ballot is curable, what, it's the canvas date, if it's, reissued, it's the other deadline, correct?
Yes,
ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So if somebody waits until the very last minute to get their ballot in and it's unacceptable,
To the point where we have to reissue?
yes,
Okay.
then they're out of luck.
Yes.
Because
And
it's
we
too late to
will-
get a new ballot
we
in
will-
by,
We will let them know they are eligible to go vote on election day at their precinct.
okay, thank you.
Is that it? Anything else?
Any other questions? Tony, are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Is there any action that's required now that we have that information?
No, so it was just making sure that, the board had that information, if there was any questions that they had, so that we can go over that. As you know, today would have been your first absentee meeting, but absentees don't go out until Friday. And so, the next absentee meeting will be on the 10th, but because we're doing it on Friday, we're not sure if we'll have anything on the 10th
Right.
as well. So most likely it will be the following week, but this is just to get you prepared, so that way when you see the process, you know what will take
Exactly.
place, and you wouldn't be lost. So that's all.
Right, it's very helpful.
When will we know for sure about the 10th? Will you tell us on the 10th or?
So yes, ma'am, so the way our system is set up, we actually have a cutoff date of Monday noon. So that way we can actually gather everything and Carrie puts it all in the order. So that way you'll know by 12 o'clock, after 12 o'clock noon, whether we have ballots to look at or not.
Thank you.
Any further questions? For clarification? All right. Very helpful. Move on to the next item on the agenda, the finalization of director duties, and we have Ms. Dixon submitted to us by email the revised complete.
That is Tony, yeah.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of the previous meeting where we discussed this, Tony, as the secretary, has incorporated those changes. My understanding is that the document that we received by email from Tawana includes only those changes that we discussed and basically orally approved at the previous meeting. This just gives us a completed written document that includes all of the director's responsibilities. So having said that, are there any questions from the board about this document?
I just have one where it had previously said, if I was chair of precinct office assignment on the second
Ms.
page.
Rose, I'm sorry, can you speak in so Ms. Tony can hear you in the mic?
I can't hear her.
Can you hear her?
Did you hear me, Tony?
No, but she's something about the vice,
Okay, she's doing it again, she's speaking in the mic.
okay.
On the second page, under election administration shall include, we had talked about changing advised chair of precinct office official assignment to propose to the board. It says propose to the chair of, I mean, it's kind of awkward. I don't really care, but, you know, I thought we were changing it to board. It doesn't really matter.
Typo on my part. It was changed to the board. I didn't get my notes. And I just forgot to put that in there.
I mean, we can pen and ink change it and still sign it. I mean, you could say proposed to the board precinct official assignment.
Did you hear Tony though? Did you hear
Proposed to the board.
Precinct official assignment.
So
Yes,
she's
told-
on page 2. If election administration shall include, and if you go down,
It's a little past halfway through.
you'll see test each voting unit, and then the next sentence, it says propose.
Okay.
It says propose to the chair. She said it should say propose to the board. Is that
Yes.
correct, Ms. Holland?
And if, yes, and there
Okay.
shouldn't be any of. It should just be proposed to the board precinct official assignment. Is what I thought we all agreed to when we met.
That is correct.
Holly, she said that she made a typographical error.
So I'm suggesting that we pen and ink change it and sign it today, so that we don't have to put it off, but that's up to you all.
But
Yeah, that's a typo. I'm looking at my notes, it should have said proposed to the board.
is there any objection or further question or discussion or regulation that I'm not aware of that prohibits us for just making that change that clearly is in alignment with what we intended and with what Tony has in her notes, just a typo? Okay, so
Do we need a motion?
do we need a motion?
To correct that. I would, so it's in your,
Yeah.
official minute.
Okay, do we have a motion to make written correction of that provision in the description of the director's duties?
I'll make that motion. I move that we change that sentence to read, propose to the board precinct official assignment to help ensure each precinct is properly staffed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of that change?
Aye.
Tony?
Right.
All right, so,
Aye.
perfect. So we have proposed to the board precinct official assignments. All right, are there other, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tony.
You go ahead, Bob, I'm jumping ahead of myself.
I was just only asking if there were other questions about this document that we need to consider. None in the room? I think we're good. So, Tony, what did you want to say?
We do need a motion to accept the director's duties as written with the correction in place.
Exactly. So, at that point, I will entertain that motion that Tony just outlined.
I move that we accept as presented with the change that has been made. We accept this.
Thank you, Susan. Is there a second?
I
All right.
already did.
Right.
Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
All right. Passes 5-0. So, I assume, let me ask this question, the technical nature, we have this document that again calls for our signatures. Is there provision for retyping it so that we don't have, I think that the text is official now. Do we need a retyped document that we sign
Well,
or
the last page, since it's just
just a?
signatures, I can take that, have Ms. Tony correct that one part, and then put it all together, send it out to the board as a whole with the signatures into the state.
Perfect.
Yeah, we need to sign a clean copy.
Exactly.
She's saying.
But you can sign the last
She wants us to
page,
sign it.
and then I'll just wait until I get that correction and then send it all to the board, because I still have to send it to the state board as well.
And you don't want to send it to them with a pen and ink change.
No.
I'd rather sign it once it's actually
Correct.
Corrected.
Yes.
I-
Once the document is actually corrected by myself, I'll send it back to Tawana, who will proof it, make sure I put that in there. And then we can send it back out and get the signatures. Is that what we're saying, correct?
Is that a matter that we can take up?
We're gonna meet next
We can
week.
do it.
Right.
We're gonna start it next week.
But
Right.
at your next meeting, you're just taking care of absentees.
Absentee ballots.
Is it only absentee?
Because,
Can we
Do we have to be
meet
in a meeting
beforehand
to
for like,
sign?
we have to be in the meeting to sign, do we?
I mean, depends on how, I mean, if you come early enough,
We just come early and sign. We've done that in the past. We
okay,
get
that's fine
signatures.
then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Tony, will you be here? Well, that's if you have
Yeah,
a
I'll
meeting
make
next
the
week.
next one. I'll feel safety enough to come in and be around everybody so I don't affect anybody, yes.
All right.
I thought you were sure.
Can they just stop in whenever?
That's
Oh.
what I'm.
So, so is it possible that once she makes the change, because I don't know if you're gonna have a meeting next week, and I can just let you know that it's been corrected, and if you can come by the office on your spare time, would that be okay?
Unless we wait till then, I mean, is it imperative we get it signed?
Well, I'm supposed to have it up to
Okay.
the state.
Then
board.
we need to come by and do it, okay.
Okay, well, I can do that.
We
Okay,
don't have
Mr.
a
Tony.
meeting next week.
That's great. Right, and I've said,
We'll get the correction in. Wanna call everybody to come in and do their signatures, get it up to the state board, and we'll be done.
And then I'll make sure that the board, I'm sorry, it's like, ooh, lost the train of thought, has a copy of it as well.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
but we'll wait to hear from you on that, and I believe that requires a motion and a second and discussion, so we've had enough of that. Terrific. Thank you very much, I appreciate that, Tony, and everybody for those suggestions about how to proceed. Next item on the agenda, precinct judge update for Pine Bluff and Pine Dean. Emery?
All right, so, Lowell Simon, he has reached out to a Miss Julia.
I'm sorry, come to the mic, so she can hear you.
Sorry.
All right, so Lowell Simon has reached out to Miss Julia Kane. She's a Democrat from the Pinehurst A1 precinct. She has agreed to be a judge in Pine Bluff, so I recommend that that's good with us. She's been a poll worker for a number of years, so I feel very comfortable that she could do the job. For Pine Dean, I contacted Miss Shermer contacted me. She was appointed as the chief judge in Pine Dean, and I have a email from her, but I also called her, and she was quite upset about the appointment and not being contacted prior to, even though I was told she was. She does not feel confident in her abilities to be a chief judge. She would prefer to remain a judge, but she did say that with a couple of elections under her belt, that she thinks she would feel more comfortable. She did say in her letter, and I can forward this email to you all if you'd like. She feels that they already had a very competent chief judge in Maureen Duquester. I don't know how to say the last name. So I know Catherine, and I spoke to her on the phone, and I saw her in training last week, and I don't think she feels at all confident in her ability. And I think she would really prefer not to be the chief judge in that precinct right now. So I told her I would come before you all and kind of reiterate her feelings to you guys. So me personally, I think she's right. I think Maureen did a fine job. She's been there for, I forget how many years, like 15. And so if you all agree, we could leave Maureen there until 2025, this appointment process. And I feel as if that's 3 elections until the next appointment process. I do think Catherine would feel confident in 2025 to be appointed as the chief judge.
Okay, so refresh my memory, why did we take Maureen out to begin with?
I don't know.
She's been there for ages
Yeah.
and did a good job. Why did we?
So when we,
Yeah.
so when we did the recommendations was for Maureen and then for the next lady. Everybody was placed into their positions, but it got kind of flipped over. And so, like we said, we thought that a lot of other judges or assistant judges had been contacted, and then we came to find out as we sent letters out that some of them did not become contacted. Some of them were wondering what happened, why they either got demoted or reissued somewhere else. And so anytime we came across a precinct that we had an issue with, we just wanted to bring it before the board to let the board know and to see if we could just put things back in place that the way that it was recommended. I know we were trying to get a balance to the best of our ability, but in some cases, we just can't do that sometimes because in this case, she doesn't want to take the position. She doesn't feel comfortable. She would like to get more election training under her belt, which is fine. And so she's just hoping that Maureen can just stay there until Maureen shows her a little bit more. And I understand coming into a 2024 presidential election,
Might be a little scary.
that responsibility will make anybody scared. So I can understand why she would just prefer to wait and not have that responsibility on her now.
So is Maureen out of precinct or is she in precinct?
She's in precinct.
Okay, and
I-
the other lady was she in precinct?
She is in precinct. Actually, all three of the judges there in Pine Dean are in precinct.
I'm trying to refresh my memory on why we didn't take her.
I don't know. I'm not really
No.
quite sure, other than it was recommended by one of the parties. Lowell had wanted Catherine.
Okay, so that would become a 3-2 vote on that probably.
Yes,
Okay, now I
probably.
got you.
I think that's what it really came down to. It wasn't a matter of being out of precinct or not being, or not doing a good job or anything like
Okay,
that.
So now we're back to Maureen being,
Well, that's what I'm recommending, only because that's what Catherine had said in the email. And like I said, I can forward this email to you all.
and this is for Pine Dean.
And this is for Pine Dean. And like I said, I feel as if after this election and next year's too, I think Catherine would be much more confident to take on the appointment in 2025. I feel like she would say yes. So I do think that would be a good thing for her to have 3 more elections under her belt. Like I said, when I talked to her, she was a little beside herself. So
So are you proposing Maureen to be the chief judge, Catherine Shermer and Kathleen Ong to be judges?
yes.
Okay.
So it keeps the makeup of the party. It wouldn't change anything.
Mhm.
So I felt that was a good replacement. We're not changing any of the parties or anything, so we're keeping the makeup of the chief judges and judges.
So, Ms. Tony, what Ms. Holly said is that what they're looking at or what's being recommended is Maureen to
Maureen would be the chief judge.
Maureen would be the chief judge.
Catherine Shermer would be a judge,
Catherine Shermer would be the judge.
and Katie
And
Ong,
Katie Ong would be the
another judge. So we would keep the original 3, just kind of swap the 2.
Did you get that? Or do you have a question still?
I still had a question.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead, go ahead, Tony.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good, thanks.
Get back to Amy for me. Amy.
You mean Annie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Amy, not Amy. I just gave a whole new name. Sorry. Forgive my mouth and you know my heart.
That's okay.
You're not a fan either. Let me be professional here. Ms. Anne Marie, is Maureen willing to take the position as chief judge? Yes or no?
She is. I did talk to Maureen. She was actually, to be honest with you, I saw her in training as well, and she asked me if she had done anything wrong to be replaced. And so I had said no and tried to explain the situation to her. So I did talk to her after I received, because she had also talked to Catherine over the phone. So they have been in contact. And so I did talk to Maureen after I spoke to Catherine, and I asked her if she would be willing to be the chief judge, and she did say yes.
Let's go back to Pine Bluff.
Oh, Pine Bluff, Julia Kane.
And what party is she?
She is a Democrat. So, and I do need I already have 2 Rs in that
Okay.
precinct, so
Okay.
that is a good
That
match.
was kind of my question. I was looking at what you recommended before, which
Yes.
was Pam Ways on the original.
Well, she's still gonna be the chief judge, and Gerald Schwartz would be the other judge. And what happened was, apparently Donna Lee, who we had appointed, she had gotten the letter and she had said that she had thought she told somebody in the Democratic Party when they called her that she had said, no, she couldn't do it at this time. But she would like her name to be kept on the list for the future, future recommendations. So I do have her kind of starred in my system as being a future judge.
Okay,
So, Julia would be replacing Miss Donna Lee.
And
okay,
is-
and so Pam Ways and Gerald Schwartz will still be the judges, okay.
Yep, so again,
Just
we
trying to
still keep
understand.
the same makeup, so it would still be 2 Rs and a D in Pine Bluff.
And now an unaffiliated in Pine.
Yes, so we would still keep the 2 Ds and the unaffiliated in Pine Dean.
Okay,
Is Julia Kane, a Pine Bluff voter?
No, she is out of precinct, so she is from Pinehurst A1. So
It does say in the statute, something that we did not adhere to as we were making appointments, that you can't have a majority from out of precinct.
yes,
So
and,
we're already violating that in
Yes,
4
and-
precincts.
and apparently we've been violating it for years. And most of the 100 counties in North
I
Carolina
thought
do.
that's what we did, that basically if it
We,
was out of precinct, we had to have all 5 agree.
We have to vote on it.
yeah,
The
I would vote,
statute says
yeah,
you
I
can't
would
even
vote on
vote.
it, but
for a
unfortunately, Holly knows and Tony knows, it's most of the time, unfortunately, we try our best to make sure that a majority of them are in precinct. Pine Bluff is one of my hard precincts to find workers in. I have about 3 or 4 that we struggle. And Taylortown and Pine Bluff, typically a majority of their poll workers, not just the judges, a majority of their poll workers are out of precinct. I can tell you right now, all but 4 workers in Taylortown are all out of precinct.
So,
So unfortunately, we try to adhere to that statute. I think the state board understands that we all bend that one a little.
I
Because
guess
if we
I'm kind of curious here though, that the original recommendation was Pam Wace, who, I believe, does she live in Pine Bluff?
Yes,
Okay,
and she's the
And-
chief judge.
yeah, she was proposed as chief judge,
Mm-hmm.
and now we've got somebody else that's gonna be chief
No,
judge.
no,
No,
Pam's
she's
gonna
gonna
stay
be
the chief judge.
Okay, so I'm confused that,
So,
so all we're doing is approving this other lady now as judge, not chief judge?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, sorry. Yeah, so she'd just be a judge, so she would just
Okay.
be replacing Donna Lee, who does not want to accept the position.
okay, now, I was thinking we're back to chief judges,
No.
since I was trying to understand.
And then the last one I have to bring up would be East Knollwood.
Is this a
Um,
new one, not an add-on now?
Oh, can I add that one?
We had Pine Bluff and Pine Dean, and now you say there's another one that we have to do a judge?
Well, another lady called and she had to resign due to work constraints.
Okay.
I would need a motion to, from the board to add that precinct in, because it's not on the,
Oh, I'm
On the
sorry.
agenda.
on the agenda.
All right, is there a motion to add the East Knollwood in, I guess, that's what the agenda as currently, as we received it, doesn't have names of judges, just the precinct names, Pine Bluff and Pine Dean, so we're looking for a motion to amend the agenda to add to that line East Knollwood, so that we can consider that matter. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I so move.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
So back to Anne Marie.
All right, so the chief judge had to resign due to her work constraints.
Is that Patricia Watts?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I recommended, and I reached out to, well, I didn't reach out to anybody on this one. I asked you about it. I know Sarah Conti's name had come up a lot in the last, when we appointed. I did reach out to her to see if that's something she would be interested in, and we've talked a number of times. Nick has talked to her, and she is interested in being the chief judge. She's right down the road from the South Southern Pines precinct. I think that would be fine. She's been a judge before. She's been a poll worker for a number of years in South Southern Pines. What? No, she filled in 1 year as a chief judge. Oh, because I'm pretty sure it was Catherine Shermer had COVID.
So she's out of precinct?
She is out of precinct.
Now, what about Barry Stabile and Lydia Weaver? Are they in precinct?
Lydia is, Barry is not.
So I guess.
And I have 2 R's in there already, and Sarah Conti is a Democrat, which would balance that out.
So my question is, could Lydia become the chief judge? Is she qualified?
She does not want
Okay,
it.
that was
Yeah,
my
oh,
question.
yes. I'm sorry. I should have said that. I reached out to both Lydia and Barry used to be the chief judge, and he just does not want that kind of responsibility. And I did talk to Lydia, and she does not. She declined my
Answer my question. Thank you.
before I recommended anybody. So that's where I got. After that, I kind of looked over the sheet and I saw Sarah's name, and so I did contact Sarah, and I think she is willing to accept the position.
Okay.
So.
Oh, somebody's written all this down.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Anne Marie, could you,
Yes. So.
speaking of writing it down,
Uh-huh,
just
so
repeat
for-
just that.
So for East Knollwood, we would be putting in Sarah Conti, Conti, a Democrat, as chief judge.
Okay, thanks.
And then for Pine Dean, we would be moving Maureen Duquester to chief judge and Catherine Shermer to judge, and keeping the other judge as is. Pine Bluff, we would be removing Donna Lee and replacing her with Julia Kane.
I make a motion that we approve all those changes.
I'll say that.
Ms. Holly made a motion to approve all those changes.
Okay.
Okay.
Marty seconded it. Yes, from Harding. Is there any discussion? No.
This,
Yeah, go ahead. Tony?
this covers the concern about having everybody in a good precinct. Well, everybody's in precinct that we're voting on, correct?
No, ma'am.
No,
Okay, my next, then when we make this vote, we're actually following statute, and we're all gonna agree that, or disagree that everybody on this ballot, you're okay with. Is that correct?
We'll see how the vote goes. I have a feeling that's where we're headed.
Is that? Did I confuse everybody?
The ones that are out of precinct will have to be unanimous votes, so is that what you're referring to?
When you made your
Yes.
comment a while ago, you said that you realized that we are not exactly adhering to the statutes, but the other 100 counties are doing the same thing.
yes,
Do you have that through word of mouth from your peers? in other
I do.
counties?
I do.
Just,
I
I
do.
just wanted to see.
I've talked, and most of the counties we do talk, we have a regional conference call every couple of months, and we talk about various things. And I can tell you, not just in our region, but probably across the state, most people unfortunately do, I'm just gonna say, bend the statute. Only because it is hard to find poll workers. We do have to move poll workers around based on the size of precincts and who can handle bigger versus smaller and things like that. So I do feel that it is a majority across the state that most people unfortunately have to do that.
And I can also say, when I first got here and we were having an issue with our Taylortown precinct, and my suggestion was to close the precinct down, move them somewhere else so that we can put people in precinct. And the state was like, you can't do that. The first thing that they will tell you to do is take somebody from a different precinct and put them into that precinct. And so the state makes us sometimes put people out of precinct just to fulfill that precinct so we can keep it up and running.
They violate their own statute.
Yes.
Right. But again, they understand.
And I understand it, so it sounds to me like statute needs to be changed, we're good.
It does, I believe it does, because now you have so many people now who are going unaffiliated. You have some counties, and I've worked in 2 different counties, where you have one county where it's primarily Democratic, and you don't have hardly any Republicans, and I'm in a county now where it's primarily Republicans, you don't hardly have any Democrats. So it does become hard to balance your precincts out. I remember having a precinct where I only had 2 people in precinct, and everybody else that worked in that precinct was out of precinct because the community itself would not want to work in the precinct. And it's the same here. Taylortown, I think when I kind of threatened to shut it down, they kind of grabbed anybody and everybody, and we were grateful for that. But sometimes you just can't grab anybody and everybody to work something that important. And so we have been doing a lot of recruiting, but we still get people from heavily in certain areas than others still. And so we're looking at different ways to try to get more people involved to fulfill that need. But at this moment, that's the state's recommendation. Just take somebody out of a precinct and put them in another precinct so that precinct can function.
So I guess the real issue is gonna be if we don't, since we put all 3 together now, if we don't do it unanimous, then we'll have to go one by one. So I guess we take the vote. If it's not unanimous, then we'll have to go one by one.
I think that makes sense. That's what I was going to suggest.
Okay.
Exactly. All right, is there any more discussion? All right, covered a lot of grounds. So you know the motion for us. If you agree, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Susan, aye. Tony? Aye. Indeed, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Emery, thank you very much for all of that information and for following up with the candidates and the replacements. That is the last item that I see on my agenda.
I have a question, Antoinette, how are you doing on the minutes?
Can you repeat that, please? I didn't hear that.
She said, he didn't. He said, how are you doing on the minutes? And I can answer that. So I have the minutes. So at the next meeting, we will be able to review the minutes for when you got sworn in, the challenge minutes as well. You did these minutes, and the emergency minutes for Pine Bluff as well. So I do have all of those. Then the next one, since we've made corrections to the precinct judge update, we'll correct that, update that list, and then give her those minutes so that she can have those minutes now.
So she's only got to redo one, the rest of them she's already gone
Yes,
through.
yes, sir.
Okay, that was my question.
Any other closing thoughts?
I just would like Anna Marie to know that although Pine Bluff is very difficult for you to find workers, I'm a native of Pine Bluff and they're really fine people.
They are. I just wish they'd come out and work.
So I was thinking, we love Pine Bluff.
Can I ask a question about the conference in February?
Do you want to ask it off?
I can ask off.
All right, so why don't we wrap this meeting up? So if there's nothing further, we stand adjourned.
Okay.
And I would thank you very much. And I just wanted, before Holly asked a question, I want to thank everybody else. And I apologize for being late, and that doesn't reflect the respect that I have for all of y'all and your time and this board and the process. So, thank you very much. Okay, we are on.